There's a ton of noise out there. So, how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Amy Filbin. She is the marketing director at Govzilla. Amy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, Amy. We are going to be talking about unifying sales and marketing, especially in a high growth team, which I am really excited to hear your thoughts because as you and I were talking a little bit offline, your team and ours at Sweetfish have been on similar growth paths. So I am really excited to hear some of the lessons you guys are learning and some of the things you're implementing for your next stage of growth. Before we get into that, though, I would love for you to share with listeners a little bit of background on yourself and what you and the team at Govzilla are up to these days.
So I started off not really in the marketing realm. I opened a small shoe store here in Austin, and by doing so, I had to learn marketing on the fly. And after 5 years, when our lease was over, we decided not to continue in the retail world, and that's when I started doing marketing full-time for another small local company called the Thrival Company. And I learned a lot there and I got a lot of training there, which is awesome. And I worked with a bunch of different clients. And so I got a perspective on marketing for different types of businesses. And then a year and change, I started working with Govzilla as the marketing director. So Govzilla, which has a funny name, I know, and now we're Govzilla. So we're in the process of rebranding right now. But Govzilla is a small software company, and our client is basically any industry that is regulated by the FDA. But most of our clients are big pharma, big food, and those that work with those people.
Gotcha. So a very specific niche market, but ones that are dealing with kind of some of the same challenges in those spaces, right?
Yes.
Makes sense. Awesome. Well, Amy, we're going to be talking about 3 specific ways that you can unify your sales and marketing team, as I mentioned, especially in early stage and high growth startups. So let's jump in there to the first of the 3 I know you wanted to share. And the first is communication. And it seems like to some folks that maybe this would just be natural, especially if you have a smaller team, that's just going to happen. But I can imagine you're going to tell us, as we've experienced, that you can't always just assume that that's happening. You've got to take some steps to make sure proactively that that's happening to unify sales and marketing, right?
Yes, definitely. So when I first started, it was me and he was a pretty junior sales person. We didn't have a sales director. We didn't have Ryan, who is now our sales director. So it was just, let's just call him Darren. And I outlined a very clear marketing process and a marketing campaign that involved him as the salesperson. And we went over it together and he kept saying, yeah, I got it. And the way that we functioned at that time was I gave it to him and I said, okay, let's do this thing. And I turned it on, the campaign on, and the leads started coming in. And from my end, it was working. But I did not check in with Darren on a daily basis, sometimes not even on a weekly basis. And it turns out like he wasn't doing his half of the campaign at all. So I was handing him leads and we promised to deliver something to these leads. And he was just over there typing up emails that had nothing to do with what we promised them. So that's the extreme example of not communication and that we had in this company. And then, needless to say, that did not work. So we ended up getting rid of Darren, and we went through another salesperson that wasn't as great either. But then we brought Ryan on. And the first thing that Ryan and I agreed upon was we would communicate, and we would communicate daily. So we actually start off each week with a team call between just the two of us, and we outline everything that we want to do for the week. We talked about the week previously, and it doesn't stop there. Like, we are constantly messaging each other all day. We're calling each other all day. And so we don't let the communication stop. And it's just not in a vacuum between the two of us either. It's also, we communicate with everybody on the team. All of his sales reps and I have a great relationship, and we constantly are in contact with each other and asking questions and going over things. And we know what everybody's doing pretty much every step of the way.
Yeah, I love that. So communication, it sounds like you guys have really swung the pendulum from no communication to, almost over communication, but I don't think there's such a thing. But this daily cadence that you're in, doing weekly calls to look forward and back. Tell us a little bit about your processes and how you document some of this back and forth between you and Ryan, who's heading up the sales function at your company. What are some of the things that you guys are reviewing regularly? You alluded to a few of those already, Amy, looking at what are the priorities for the week? How did we perform on our priorities for last week? Go a little bit deeper there into, your processes and documentation, because I think that is the second key that really folks need to keep in mind here, right?
Yeah. So it goes beyond just planning out the week. So we've taken it to an extreme and have created a playbook that is over 230 pages. And the reason why we did that was because we didn't want to have to worry on a day-to-day basis about what to do. We wanted to have processes that everybody on the team could follow step by step. If they forgot one, they would have a manual to go back and look at and to keep them on track. And we felt it was really important to know what happens every step of the journey of a customer, from lead acquisition to turning them into a customer and then keeping them as a customer. So what we did is we sat down together and we just looked at every single little piece. Like, I walked them through all of our marketing content. I showed them every single form and where that form leads to on the landing page, and what happens after the person gets to the landing page, and the thank you page, and so on and so forth for the marketing. And then I gave him that information, and then he turned around and we worked out together. It's like 13-step cadence of what would be happening with the sales team, and how, when to call, when to email. We have some templates in place. And by doing this, we fully understood each other's process and what was being talked about at each and every point. Because going back to Darren, the trouble we had before Ryan came on board, like, I would send out emails giving information that were marketing emails. And, with marketing, you do a lot of automation. So people opt in for something and then they get a three email campaign. And he didn't bother learning what was in those emails and what we've already offered them. So he would, 3 months later, offer the same thing that had already been offered to that person. So when Ryan came on board, we're like, okay, there's not going to be any confusion as to what was said and what's happening. So we took all of that together and we created this 230-page playbook, like I said, and it not only has like our voice and who the personas are that we're talking to, but it could be used as a training guide. So if we bring on new sales rep, which, as you know, when you're going from 4 to 20 in 8 months,
right,
you need to train people very quickly. Yep. So they would have each click in HubSpot on what to do each step of the way. Then, once a rep uses the playbook a couple of times, it kind of just sits to the side and it's there if they need it, but they just do the stuff automatically.
Today's growth story is all about search engine marketing. The company we're highlighting is SentinelOne. This challenger cybersecurity brand was set out to disrupt the endpoint protection space. Their brand was top-notch, their product was innovative, but they were struggling to gain traction online in an already developed industry. Then they found Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency. Within the first quarter of working with Directive, SentinelOne was able to increase their organic traffic by 128% and overall lead volume by an outstanding 251%. Now, I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Yeah. What are your thoughts there on, how you roll that out? What did you guys do? Tell us a little bit more of the format of this playbook. Is it a Google Doc that you and Ryan have collaborated on over time and, put videos in and other pieces, or what's the format for you guys?
It started off as a Google Slides because we wanted to put in a lot of bullet points and pictures, and we figured that was the easiest way for everybody to get their information. And we just add parts into it. For a while there, it was every day we were adding a new section.
Right.
And now, as part of our communication that we were talking about earlier, we have weekly commercial team meetings. And that thing is brought out for every meeting because at every meeting we are talking about, tweaking and revising how we're doing things. And so I'm sitting there just like live editing the sales playbook. So it's definitely a living document for all of us.
Yeah. I think if you're gonna put the work into putting together a 200+ page playbook, then you've got to make sure that thing doesn't just collect digital dust and it maintains life and vitality. So I love that you guys are incorporating, that constant communication and creating that feedback loop to make it better and better as you go. That's really fantastic. One of the other things I've heard you and Ryan mention is shared reporting that brings your commercial team together, unifies sales and marketing. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing there. Give us a peek behind the curtain and how that's helping you guys stay on the same page and ultimately be more successful together.
Yeah. A great part of really documenting your processes is that people put in the information that you need to clearly track what's happening. So every single person on the team is responsible for marking and tagging where the lead is coming from, what happens to the lead each step of the way, so that the reporting can be very robust in that way. Like, you can't really know how well your marketing efforts are doing unless you know what's happening to your leads. So it's not just Ryan and I collaborating on the reporting. I feel like it's the whole team, by everybody doing their part. And from all that information in HubSpot, which we use, we've put together at least 10 different dashboards. We have, of course, like the sales activities. That is mostly just the sales team, where you keep track of calls and emails and everything that they've sent. But I think the most interesting dashboards that we've created, it shows by lead source. So from our blog, or we have a newsletter, or LinkedIn, there's several different categories. We see how many are coming in, how many are converted to actual leads that we're working into, did they opt in for one of our Tripwire things, which is like a free assessment. And we can see very clearly every step for every lead source. There's their own dashboard. So we know how many converted into a paying customer, how many subscribed, and how long it took them, how many times we had to contact them before they became a customer. And it's very much a joint effort getting those things together, because if people aren't putting their numbers in, then we're not going to have those dashboards.
Just real quick there, I love what you guys are doing in this shared reporting. I talked to so many sales and marketing leaders that are trying to really embrace the data at their fingertips to be more data driven, but a lot of them, they have separate dashboards. They're looking at different data, but the way that you guys have formed this natural overlap by just saying, hey, we're going to have a shared dashboard that everybody's contributing to and can see, is just naturally driving alignment, right?
Yes. And then we take it one step further, and both Ryan and I create a very complete report for our CEO, and we present it together as the commercial team quarterly reporting. And our CEO said that it was like the first time he's ever had a sales and marketing director come together and present their numbers to him and present their plan as a cohesive unit. And he said it's been very easy for him to help direct the commercial team growth by having us work together in this way, because I wasn't just saying, hey, I brought in this many leads, I don't know what happened to them afterward. It was like both of us saying, yeah,
right.
And this is what we plan on doing with them in the future and how to get more of them. So it's been really great working with Ryan on that.
Yeah, I love to hear that feedback of what you guys are doing internally from your CEO. And obviously it's leading to great results. You guys are continuing to grow at a great pace. So Amy, I love this conversation. If anybody listening to this would like to ask you some follow-up questions, learn more about what you guys are doing that might be able to be replicated in their teams as they try to unify sales and marketing, what's the best way for anybody listening to this to reach out or stay connected with you?
I guess the easiest way is just to look for me on LinkedIn. So Amy, Marketing Director at Govzilla. That's Govzilla, just in case. Or you can just email me at amy@fdazilla.com.
Amy, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.